ではですね、こちらのレイトンハウスの中をダニエルさんに案内してもらいたいと思います。ではまず最初はこちらのルームはどういうお部屋でしょうか？
So we're in Leighton's painting studio, this great big room, and it's dominated by these windows on the north side to get lots of daylight into the studio where he worked. And this is really the most important room in the house because visitors would come up the stairs and enter this big space. When he lived here, of course, it was full of easels and equipment, as well as furniture and objects that created an atmosphere in it. And the black panel in the corner over there is in fact a doorway. So it is for sending big canvases, big paintings go through that little passageway, that slot, and onto the outside of the building. So it's a nice idea that he had. And he would entertain in here, so every year he had a concert in here with internationally famous musicians would play here. And he welcomed many visitors into this space.
そうするとここにもビクトリア女王は入られたわけですかね。
So I'm sure when she came to visit, she would have been brought in here to see his paintings and to meet him. I'm sure she was probably taken on a tour of the house. But many famous artists of the day came to visit Leighton here, as well as musicians and all kinds of important people. Hanging here is the very last painting he was working on just before he died. So this is in 1896, and he had been unwell for the previous year, but he was still producing his work. And after he died, this picture was shown at the Royal Academy as the one painting to represent his life and his career, which is the tradition that when a Royal Academician dies, one painting is shown the next year to commemorate him. And then here we've just recreated these bookcases because the original ones were designed by Leighton and the architect for the house, and they were sold after he died, so we have recreated. So there was about 7 pieces of furniture designed for the house.
Oh, really nice. Original, where is the original one?
Well, we don't know.
You don't know?
Because the tragedy really is after he died, all the original contents of the house were all sold.
Sold?
They were all sold sold at Christie's in London.
Christie's in London. That someone had.
So what we have done since is to try and bring back things which were sold.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So to recreate what it was like when he lived here. But some things are in museums all over the world. So it's not possible to bring everything back. But we are creating what it was like when he lived here. And over time, we hope it will get closer and closer to how it was when he lived here. Because, you know, in the 20th century, the house was bomb damaged in the Second World War. And so in the 1950s and the 1960s, it was in a poor condition. So it's been a long process of restoration and recovery of it.
このカラーも
The great thing is, because the house was famous when Leighton was alive, there were many descriptions of what it was like, which we still have, and as well as many photographs of what it was like. And the descriptions will say the wall color is, I think this is described as Indian red. And then it's possible to scrape and find there is the red color and match the original color. So we've been able to recreate the colors that were here when Leighton died.
そうですか。では次のお部屋を案内してもらえますか？
So we're in the silk room, and it was called the silk room because the walls are lined with silk.
Lined the silk.
Yeah.
So silk.
So this is the green.
This is the
silk.
silk one.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so beyond those columns was the very last bit of the house that he added just before he died, and it was added to be a picture gallery. So it's lit from the top. So the walls can be hung with paintings, and the wall facing us was where all his paintings that he'd been given by his friends and contemporaries were hung, so by other Victorian artists. and we've just been able to acquire one of these. As I was saying, it was sold, and we've just been able to buy it back and bring it back to hang it where Leighton had it. This is called A Noble Lady of Venice, and again, it gives an indication of his interest in Venice and Venetian art. There's no drama or narrative, or this is not an individual figure from history. This is simply a composition which is about the richness of the textile and the contemplation of the vase with the flowers. This at the end of the 1860s is when it was.
Fountain.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
Someone sit on
Yeah,
the floor.
so we don't think, I mean, in theory, that's where you could sit, but we think it was more just a sort of something beautiful to look at. And this sculpture was placed here, so it sort of framed the sculpture.
It is the original one?
Yeah, so we think he acquired it in Cairo in Egypt, and it was inserted into there.
Yeah, this screen is really interesting.
Yeah. Well, he travelled to
all over the
North Africa and to Egypt, and Syria and Turkey. So he was familiar with all of those places.
All of those places.
Yeah.
Interesting. Could you show me any?
So this is the painting which we have just acquired from the Getty family in America, and it's by the painter Lawrence Alma-Tadema, and he lived in also a remarkable studio house in St John's Wood in London.
Oh, really?
And so this Alma-Tadema gave this painting to Leighton, and this is where it hung. So it's come back after 127 years back to where it started from.
Nice.
And then this is also hung here in Leighton's time. And this is by John Everett Millais, who really with Leighton was the leading artist really of that period. And you can see it actually says to Frederic Leighton from John Everett Millais. So it was a
すごい。
gift.
ちょっとね、カメラさん寄ってもらいたいんです。ここに書いてありますね。すごい。
This we have acquired, and this which have come back to exactly the place that they were in when they were sold. So it's slowly putting back together his collection.
Nice idea.
So this is by Jacopo Tintoretto, one of the most famous of the.
Looks very old.
So yes, yeah. We had a photograph showing that's where it hung in Leighton's time. So it's come back, but. I said that the house after the war was in a very poor condition. There are photographs of this room where it's all painted white and the ceiling has fallen in and it's in a real mess. So it has been a very slow process to restore it to how it was in his time.
Oh, this is a bedroom? Wow,
Very
interesting.
simple.
Very simple.
Yeah. One of the odd things about this house is this is the only bedroom. There's no guest accommodation in the house. And as everybody notices, how simple this room is in comparison to the other rooms. And because it was the room in which he died, there was a drawing made of it, which showed the bed was along the wall here. It was hung with reproductions of paintings that he admired and was very simply furnished, and it gives a bit of an idea that the rest of the house was built for almost for the public. It was built to be seen, and it was often written about and photographed. And when Leighton was entertaining, he was entertaining out in those rooms. And this is really the only private room in the house, and so it has a very different atmosphere. And it doesn't, the doors. It's got a wallpaper that you could just buy from a shop, whereas the rest of the house has everything is bespoke and made especially for the house. So it's quite different in its atmosphere.
そうすると、この大きな部屋の中で、この大きな邸宅の中で、唯一の生活の感じを感じられる部屋ですかね。
The route up the main stairs and into the studio was quite a public route. So when Leighton was entertaining, so this is tucked around the corner to keep it sort of private and away from, so almost so you would not know the house has a bedroom. It's sort of hidden away. And then over the fireplace is a portrait by Leighton of his father.
Oh, really?
And when Leighton's father was a doctor.
Doctor.
And when,
Doctor.
When Leighton was 16 years old, he said to his parents, "I would like to be an artist." And I think this is the reaction. His father wasn't very enthusiastic about that idea, because I think his father thought he would be a doctor following his father. But his father then said he could become an artist as long as he became an eminent artist, a famous artist. So I don't think his father was a very easy personality.
Easy personality. Okay. Yeah.
Over on this wall is his sister.
A sister.
So it's also a portrait by Leighton of his sister.
Interesting.
So when he died, Leighton had two sisters, Alexandra and Augusta, and they inherited the house when he died. And they tried, when they inherited, they tried to keep it as he left it, with all of his collections and everything here. But they couldn't find a way of doing that, and that's what led to the sale of all the original contents. So this is the entrance hall of the house. We've recently restored this room, and again it's dominated by this big painting, which is by the Venetian school. So as visitors first came in, this was the first thing they saw, and it gave them an idea of Leighton's interests. But what was sort of often said is this room was quite simple, not much furniture, because it kept a surprise for where we're going next.
Gap of the image. Okay, nice idea. Oh, nice, lovely.
So this is the middle of the house, the core of the house, and it ends with the Arab hall at the far end here. So it's really three spaces. This is the staircase hall, and then what's called the Narcissus hall in the middle, and then the Arab hall at the end. This is the grand main staircase.
Main staircase.
Yes, because in an artist's house, when you are going up to have your portrait painted or meet the artist, so Leighton would be upstairs in his studio, and then you would be met by the butler, and escorted up the stairs. And so you're supposed to be impressed as you climb the staircase, ready to meet the artist. So Leighton and his architect spent a lot of time creating this space, and you can see how grand it is, how tall it is, to create a good impression. So the tiles are the work of somebody called William de Morgan, who worked with William Morris originally, and he became the most celebrated potter or ceramic artist of the arts and crafts movement. And you can see them behind us here, these wonderful turquoise blue tiles that he made for the house. And they lined the walls of this, which is called the Narcissus Hall, because this was thought to be Narcissus. So the sculpture was excavated in Pompeii, and then casts were made of it. So this is a cast. And many of the descriptions of the house suggest that the blue tiles and the silver ceiling, the gold ceiling, creates a watery, mirrored effect. And Narcissus, the story of Narcissus is he was the young man who fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. And so this is maybe suggesting the pool of water, and you can hear the fountain sounds of water as well. So this is really the most spectacular room in the house. So it was built a little over 10 years after the original house was built, and it was designed to display these wonderful tiles that Leighton had collected. So most of them come from Damascus, from Syria, but he collected them as he traveled, and then others also collected them as they were traveling, and so this was built to create a kind of atmospheric setting where those tiles could be displayed. And it cost an enormous amount of money to build this. And Leighton commissioned some of his friends, so other artists, to help create it. And of course, he worked very closely with his architect on the design of it. And it's actually modelled on an interior which is still surviving in Palermo in Sicily. And that is called L'Aziza, which is a 12th century palace, and it has a room that this is not copying but is inspired by. So the ceiling was gilded, so put back to being gold, but only 10 years ago.
Only 10 years ago.
After the Second World War, it was painted over, and so it was redone. But in the descriptions from Leighton's time, it says that you can see the color of the windows. It says that when the sun comes in, all the colors of the windows light up the dome, and you get reflected in the. But I've never seen that actually happen. So I don't know whether the trees outside have grown and it blocks the sun. Sometimes they light up quite brightly, but never enough for the color to bounce into the dome.
Idea is nice.
And the idea is nice. And we are often asked, what was this for? How did Leighton use this room? And really, well, we know after dinner it was used as a smoking room, so cigars and coffee were in here. But it was really a place to display these tiles. That's really what it was for, more than a practical. It was just a beautiful space rather than a practical room.
Well, I wanted to sit down and I wanted to drink and coffee, tea.
Yes, really nice.
Yeah, nice. ダニエルさん、今日はたくさんこちらのレイトンのミュージアムを紹介していただきありがとうございました。日本の方がとてもよく分かったと思います。最後に日本の方にちょっとコメントがあればですね、ぜひ教えていただきたいんですけれども。
Well, it's been a great pleasure to welcome you to the museum. We have just completed this big project. We were shortlisted for the Museum of the Year. Sadly, we didn't quite win. So there is many things for people to see, and really Leighton House is a unique place to have an understanding of the position of artists and the wealth and success of artists in Victorian London.
日本の皆さん、ぜひですね、このロンドンに来た時にはこのレイトンハウスにお寄りになってみてください。とても素晴らしい場所でした。ではまた次回よろしくお願いします。Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.